The first winter storm we've been talking about over the past several days is now impacting the Midwest, and this low pressure system associated with this snow is expected to intensify as it continues to head further eastward, and we're going to see a very heavy snowfall threat by tomorrow for much of the Northeast and just north of the Ohio River Valley. If we were to continue to move forward with the GFS model, another thing too that the GFS model is forecasting is that it wants to bring snow closer to the Interstate 95 corridor cities, including this snowstorm, which initially was as expected that the snow would mainly stay in the interior portions of the Northeast, but now the GFS model has been shifting its forecast to bring more of the snow to the Interstate 95 corridor cities, at least on the back side. We have to see if this stays correct, and we are going to need to see the latest depiction of the European model once the 0Z run comes out, because that'll be key in determining if we're actually going to see snow along the Interstate 95 corridor, because of course the GFS model has been a little bit the forecast model that's been less accurate than the European model this winter, so we're going to have to see if the European model agrees with the next run. But if we were to take a look at the GFS model, we do see that the snow showers should move into the Illinois and Indiana area by the midday on Sunday, and then by right around late Sunday, the snow should begin to intensify around the Ohio area, and we're going to see that snow begin to move into Pennsylvania, upstate New York by the very early portion of Monday, where we do see that even northwestern New Jersey gets involved a little bit with heavy snowfall, and there's plenty of rain just to the south of it as a result of a strong jet stream dip that's creating a highly unstable environment for this low pressure system to intensify as it heads further eastward. And we're seeing just enough of a strong ridge to create a strong southerly flow on the eastern side of this low pressure system to force the low pressure system to interact with the very warm air mass and to interact with the cooler air mass just to the north of this low pressure system. So as a result, we're seeing a highly unstable environment, heavy snowfall throughout the interior Northeast. However, what's interesting is that by the late Monday timeframe, we see that this storm begins to develop a backside, as the GFS model expects this storm to intensify a little bit more than anticipated, and we could see more of a mid-latitude cyclone look where we see more of the rain wrap around the low pressure system on the northwestern side, as well as the snow. And this backside could impact you see the areas closer to the coast, where we do see that New Jersey gets involved with heavier snowfall. In this scenario, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and even New York City a little bit gets involved with the snow on the backside of this low pressure system. As right now, as of the latest depiction, as the latest run of the European model is stating, as of now, it doesn't expect the backside to be that strong as what the GFS model is currently forecasting, but we're going to need to see if the European model maintains this forecast, because if this were to be the case, then New York City and Boston should expect much more snow from the next two snowstorms that are expected to move through, thanks to the backside of this low pressure system beginning to intensify a little bit more than anticipated. And we do see heavy snowfall throughout Boston by the late portion of Monday, but that's of course not the only snowstorm we're paying close attention to, because right after this snowstorm, we of course have a little bit of a ridge that we've been talking to you guys about over the past several videos that's expected to build, that's expected to steer this low pressure system that's located between the border of the United States and Mexico to move further northeastward, and it'll of course encounter another unstable environment as a result of a strong southerly flow this ridge is inducing, forcing the warm air to interact with the very cool air mass just to the north of it. And we're seeing heavy snowfall throughout Oklahoma and the northern portion of Texas, so you want to pay close attention to that, because even if you might not necessarily experience a high amount of snowfall accumulation, you still could receive very fast snowfall rates, where that small snowfall accumulation could fall at a very fast clip, which could easily cause havoc on the roadways. You don't necessarily need a high amount of snowfall accumulation to create havoc on the roadways, because of course snow could fall at a very fast clip to where the snowplows can't even keep up, even if it's a small amount of snowfall accumulation. And taking a look as we continue move forward into the early portion of Wednesday, we do see the heavy snow moves into Arkansas, and we see the pinks, which shows that the GFS model is expecting very heavy snowfall associated with this storm in the northwestern portion of Arkansas moving forward into the early Wednesday timeframe. The snow should move into St. Louis by that point. The southern portion of Indiana and Cincinnati could get involved a little bit with some snowfall, as well as, of course, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. You will still experience a snowfall even after the low pressure system moves to the east of you guys. The heavier snowfall should move into St. Louis by the midday on Wednesday, I'd say, before it eventually winds down by Wednesday afternoon. And we do see very heavy snowfall throughout Ohio, and by the midday on Wednesday, the snowfall should approach Pennsylvania before entering New Jersey. And another thing that's interesting with this storm system is that the GFS model is expecting this low pressure system to move just a little bit further eastward, and it expects this ridge to bring down just enough of a strong northerly flow to force that cold air further southward, which means that the entirety of the state of New Jersey, New York City, Philadelphia experiences an all snow event in this scenario and stays in the snow for quite some time. So this would be a more significant snowstorm for much of the Interstate 95 corridor if the GFS model's forecast ends up being correct. I'm still leaning more to what the European model is stating based on the fact that it's been correct for most of the winter thus far, including this snowstorm, but we easily can't rule out the GFS model either. And there's, of course, always that possibility the European model could shift its forecast because we're still around 4 days out from this storm. So while the forecast is certainly more certain than before, there still easily could be those changes in the forecast between now and 4 days. So you want to pay very close attention to what the computer models are saying. But I will say for certain that a lot of the areas just north of the Ohio River Valley will experience a very heavy snowfall threat, as well as much of the interior northeast. The bigger question remains along the Interstate 95 corridor, if you're going to see snow or not, depending on how much cold air will be locked in place by the time this low pressure system approaches northeast. I'll keep you guys updated over the next several days. It seems like this ridge is definitely going to stay here by the time the low pressure system moves eastward, but might not be strong enough to create a strong enough southerly flow to warm up those temperatures for the precipitation to fall in the form of rainfall. So we're going to need to pay close attention to this, but I'd say still the forecast is fairly certain. It's just along the Interstate 95 corridor where I'd say it does become a little bit more uncertain, because it's always difficult to forecast where that rain snow line will be, and depending on how strong the southerly winds and northerly winds will be, that will determine who will get the heaviest snowfall along Interstate 95 corridor. But along the interior northeast and much of the Midwest, you should expect anywhere from 3 to 6 to 6 to 12 inches of snow, especially in the interior northeast, where this storm will rapidly intensify as a result of a highly unstable environment. And we do see right after the storm a very significant jet stream dip, so temperatures will be cooler than average for much of the eastern half of the United States, and we could see a clipper system move through by next week, so you want to pay close attention to that. And we could see some snow, as the higher possibility of snow over the next week, so we're going to need to pay very close attention to that. Now let's take a look at the European model. The European model is showing a very similar forecast to what the GFS model is stating. If we were to continue to move forward for this first snowstorm, it's very similar. A small amount of snow showers should move in by Sunday throughout the Ohio River Valley. Expect 1 to 3 inches from this snowstorm, not anything significant, definitely not as significant as the second snowstorm. Pretty big jet stream dip just to the west of this low pressure system, creating an unstable environment for this storm to strengthen. And however, the big difference is that the European model doesn't expect the snow to move closer to the coast. It does expect the backside to build along this low pressure system, more specifically in New England, but doesn't bring it as far south. So New York City and Philadelphia is entirely a rain event for you guys in the European model's latest scenario. However, I will point out that it has been a trend with the European model to create a backside of this low pressure system. So this could be one of those scenarios where both of the computer models are now beginning to realize a trend where we're more likely to experience a backside of this low pressure system, where the moisture will wrap around and bring snow to more of the coastal areas of the Northeast. We're going to need to see if that trend continues. I'll keep you guys updated. Just pay close attention to the 0Z run of the European model, because that will give a good indication of whether or not we're going to see a powerful backside of this low pressure system or not to bring the snow to the Northeast. However, for much of the Midwest, it's pretty certain at this point a significant snowstorm will impact you guys. It's going to be a close forecast right up along the Ohio Valley, depending on where that rain snow line will be, and of course the Interstate 95 corridor. We're going to need to pay close attention to the position of this low pressure system. If this low pressure system moves a little bit too quickly to the north, then it'll be more likely a rain event in the areas that are pretty much on the fence between the rain snow line. But if this low pressure system ends up moving a little bit further southward and doesn't move northward as quickly, then we're more likely to see a snow event for those along the border of the rain snow line. So we're going to need to pay close attention to that, but expect a lot of snow and ice right around Oklahoma and northern Texas, so pay close attention to that. And we do see very heavy snowfall just north of the Ohio River Valley that could move into Cincinnati and the Ohio River Valley regions as well. And we do see that the European model doesn't expect as much snowfall closer to the coast with this second snowstorm, unlike the GFS model where it pretty much expects most of the snow to stay north of the Interstate 95 corridor. So New York City and Philadelphia, you might experience a couple of snowflakes from the storm before, of course, it eventually changes over the rain, and you don't experience accumulating snowfall in the European model scenario. We're going to need to see if this keeps up, but at this point, it's pretty certain that we're going to stay at least with this trajectory with this low pressure system, but those minor changes can make a big difference in the forecast, so you need to still stay on high alert along the bigger cities along the northeast coast. Taking a look at what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall, the GFS model is expecting 12 to 24 inches for much of the interior northeast, 6 to 12 for much of the Midwest, just to the north of the Ohio Valley and extending into Arkansas and Oklahoma, and portions of northern Texas as well, 3 to 6 inches just to the north of this snow band, and just to the south as well into Kentucky, West Virginia. And we do see the snow is a lot closer to the Interstate 95 corridor than the GFS model, and we do see that New York City in this scenario experiences anywhere from 1 to 3 to potentially up to 3 to 6 inches, and northwestern New Jersey experiences 6 to 12. Philadelphia experiences maybe around an inch, while Boston is close to experiencing 6 to 12 inches of snow. So if the GFS model was correct, you should expect more snowfall up along the coast. Taking a look at the European model's forecast, we do see that it wants to bring the heaviest snowfall to much of the same areas: Cleveland, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Chicago, and even just to the west of Texas. Those are the areas you need to pay close attention to for heavy snowfall over the next few days. And then we do see that the snow isn't as close to the Interstate 95 corridor as the GFS model is saying. However, Boston does experience a little bit more snow in the European model scenario, so you want to pay very close attention to that. New England, some areas could experience 12 to 24 inches. Northern Connecticut experiences a lot of snow, so this is going to be a very close forecast for much of the bigger cities along northeast, so I'll keep you guys updated. So here's my snowfall forecast for this major snowstorm pattern over the next week. So in a lot of these areas, this will be a significant snowstorm, 6 to 12 inches of snow. I'm including northwestern New Jersey in this category, as it seems like the computer models are honing in on northwestern New Jersey experiencing the heavy snowfall. It's going to be a close forecast for Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, but in Cleveland, Chicago, Indianapolis, and even just to the south of Oklahoma City, you should expect very heavy snowfall, and St. Louis as well. So make sure to stay prepared, as it's likely this is going to happen. But I thank you guys for watching.